This sort of sound, don't worry, I'm not going to, we're in different stages of dress at this household, but there's a mirror, so I don't want to get, my poor husband, who's so supportive of my business, and then I put him in situations where he's running after our kids, you know, partially clothed, because that's what happens in a household. Sometimes people, it just does. And this has been going on since 4 o'clock in the morning West Coast time. So I'm sorry I couldn't jump on sooner. Trace, you're ripping? You're not really sorry. You wanted to rip that. You're in that stage where we're apologizing for things that we really are not sorry for. It's sort of like politics. Okay, I'm going to go in that room and just lock the door. By the way, we have these great mirrors in this household. Let me show everybody. You see these big mirrors? Here are like the big Instagram mirrors where people stand in front and like take photos of their beautiful outfits. And all I can do is like do like a really harsh critique of like every angle. I'm like, what's going on with that varicose vein in the back of my leg? This is what I do. You don't have to worry about that.
What are you talking about?
Varicose veins.
What do you think? Men don't get varicose veins?
I mean, they do,
what kind of a sexist statement is that?
Maybe they just don't need to worry about them quite as much. I think that's probably true. This is non-biased news, smarter news. Okay, that's what. Okay, all right, guys. I actually have. I think there's a couple really good new kind of news you can use information today, and also some movement happening on Capitol Hill. I want to tell you about. So. I try to keep this short. I feel like my coffee talks are going longer and longer. That's unintentional. The first thing I just want to tell you about today is that, let's see, is it Sunday? Yes. So it would be Sunday or this weekend, the Forever Stamps price goes up. 5 cents per stamp. The reason why I think this is important for many, first of all, I love to send letters. I mean, they're so much different than email. But I'm so grateful that my colleague Jill flag this story, because if you send out Christmas cards and you're buying a lot of stamps, it's worthwhile to go by and get them at your grocery store, at the post office before this weekend, because you're going to save a little bit of money. Every little bit counts, right? Why pay 5 cents more per stamp when you don't have to? So, so that's something I just want to give you a heads up about. The U.S. Postal Service is doing this because, of course, there are billions of dollars in debt to the government. The Postal Service is open during a government shutdown because it's that weird sort of hybrid agency that's not, it's always difficult to explain, but it's not, it's supported by our tax dollars, but not necessarily funded every day. It's very confusing. The bottom line is the post office is still open because of that reason, though, but they're still losing a lot of money. So if you buy stamps, especially if you send out, like 200 Christmas cards every year, you might as well go buy them this week, because, the Forever stamps you can use forever, but they're going up in price. They usually go up about a penny, but now they're going up a nickel. Think about that. It adds up. So anyways, that's something I thought you should really know about. The second thing I think you really should know about is that Los Angeles teachers are back to work today. They figured out a deal with one of the largest school districts in the country to bring the two sides together. As teachers get a raise, they eventually get smaller classrooms. There's a lot of resources. The question is, how will the district pay for it? The reason why this is important to watch is, one, we like to see compromise, right? It's like it actually does happen somewhere. And the school district is so big that there are other school districts like the Denver school district, the Oakland, the school district in the Bay Area. Different teachers unions watch what other unions are able to negotiate through striking. And so this was why it was important to watch, but the teachers are back to work today. So there's a big question about how the district will pay for some of these agreements, but for right now, there's an agreement. Speaking of lack of agreements, let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the government right now, because yesterday I said, hey, no one's bringing any bills to the floor. We have no idea what's really going on with the Senate. How are we moving forward with this government shutdown? Here's what's happening. Here's what we learned yesterday. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, decided that he is going to bring the president's proposal to the floor for a vote in the Senate. That's going to happen on Thursday. One of the other things he's doing is allowing the Senate Minority Leader, which is the Democrat Chuck Schumer, to bring the bill that Democrats approved in the House. Now, Democrats approved it in the House because they have the majority in the House, so they were able to vote for it. That bill would open the government until February 8th, and it would provide back pay to federal workers, and it would provide disaster funding, but basically give everybody time to negotiate further on border security. That's what the Democrats say. The Republicans say there's no way we're getting anything if we stop this shutdown. So that's a no deal. What's interesting about the president's proposal, as you know, we talked about it. This is, border wall funding. The Democrats have included many other things in this bill, but no money for the border wall. Period. Nothing. Zero. Okay. So even if it's miraculously passed the Senate, the president would likely veto it. So that's something you should know. In the meantime, Republicans have this proposal from the president, but we're learning a little bit more about it. It's not just about offering temporary legal status to some folks that were brought into the country, for example, illegally as children and have lived here for years. There's also some, I don't want to say immigration reform add-ons, but there's some things that that have to do with asylum status, for example, that would definitely make Democrats nervous. So while they would get temporary legal status for some that Democrats have advocated for in the past, there are some of these sort of uh, what could be described as conservative immigration proposals tucked into this broader spending bill. This would reopen the government as well, provide back pay, all of that, disaster aid. But again, it's a non-starter for Democrats. So here's why I think it's important, though, that the votes are allowed, and it's actually good that the Republican Senator Mitch McConnell agreed that Senator Schumer can bring his bill to the floor because it allows a process to take place, and in some cases, it can allow for political cover, for lack of a better term. So Democrats can say, look, we tried this, we can't get this bill through the Senate. We're going to have to figure something else out. They can even say that to their constituents if they needed to. Republicans can say, listen, President Trump, we tried to do this proposal. It's not going to work. You're going to have to strip out this other stuff, add some of this stuff. Let's try it again. So, at least there's something happening that could lead to some progress. What I think is, I mean, that's highly optimistic, by the way. But I always default to optimistic. I mean, the bottom line is that there's some movement, and we're going to see what happens. In the Senate, though, you need 60 votes for these proposals, either one of them to pass, and neither party has 60 votes in the Senate. So it's just unlikely. That's why people are saying that, like, meh. So in the meantime, that's what's happening. We sort of have to wait till Thursday to see if anything, sort of takes place. Um, but I think this is a great contrast today to a very important day in history and one of our founding fathers, because it really raises the question, and this is the big stuff. What does political courage really look like? Because politicians need it in order to compromise and get things done. And so let me just tie this quickly to a name that I know you know, John Hancock. You know John Hancock, right? I mean, everyone knows John Hancock. He's the one that signed the Declaration of Independence in that beautiful cursive writing, but rather big, right in the middle. And that's why we say, oh, yeah, give me your John Hancock, which means give me your signature here in America. So it's his birthday today. He was born in Massachusetts. He was an orphan. He was lucky, unlike Alexander Hamilton, who had to kind of make his way as an orphan in this world. John Hancock was adopted by a wealthy uncle in Massachusetts who has a shipping fortune. And this is very key because he was able to graduate from Harvard at age 17 and kind of join the shipping empire. And of course, who's the most dominant shipping empire in the world is the British. But he had no loyalty to the British. In fact, he was always trying to kind of I don't want to say poke the British, but in some cases it sounded like he he did. And the British actually seized one of his ships, the Liberty. Interestingly named, don't you think, before the Revolution? And John Adams, John Hancock's good friends in Massachusetts, got John Hancock off some of the charges for allegedly smuggling with that ship. Anyhow, John Hancock was one of the few people that actually signed the Declaration on July 4th. We think of that date because remember, I'm sure you've seen the painting where all these founding fathers are gathering around signing this document. It didn't happen on July 4th. It really happened on August 2nd because most of them had approved the Declaration of Independence. They had returned to their areas, or they hadn't been to Philadelphia, and eventually they all came to sign it. So John Hancock was there, though, and he was looking at this amazing document, and there are some that say he signed his name really big because he wanted King George to be sure to see it. He kind of sounds like a Boston guy, doesn't he? Like, Yeah. But many say that's probably not true. Who knows what's true? But he was one of the few people to sign a very big blank space. And what we have to remember is that we look at these founding fathers as these amazing, brave individuals because in the end, their side won, right? But David McCullough, who's a historian who I love, I listen to his speeches on YouTube sometimes, like if I'm cleaning around the house. So it's just something that you might, even if you're on your work today, like look him up on YouTube and listen to one of his speeches that he gives at a university or a conversation on C-SPAN. And he brings up this point a lot, but he did it really well in the New York Times in an editorial a couple years ago. He wrote the book 1776 as well. And he always reminds us, we don't know what the future holds right now politically in our country. We have no idea, but no one has ever known at any point in America what's going to happen next. I mean, that's what America is about in many ways. It's because we have some ownership over our own destiny, isn't it? So what he was saying is we have to remember that someone like John Hancock didn't just sign the document and be like, yeah, I'm signing it so King George can see my signature. When he signed that document, he was admitting to treason. He was admitting that he was guilty if this revolution like didn't go anywhere, which is exactly what it looked like, especially in the first year, that the British were going to totally kill everybody and hang these founding fathers. You know, they had no idea. And so signing the Declaration was signing your life away. It was. And he did it. And he did it big. And he did it bold. And that's what we remember him for. But we should also remember him because he was a 9-term governor in Massachusetts. And he also was really integral. He didn't, he's not a big battlefield leader like you hear about these other guys, but he raised a lot of money to make sure that there were supplies for the troops. And, sometimes that went better than others. But he was really fundamentally a fundraiser. And he also, because of his shipping experience, apparently was a huge advocate for the American Navy. So a couple of things that I think you should know about. But that's something, Smarter News, what I want to do is sometimes ask some of these bigger questions. What does political courage really look like? Like, what is it? How do we define it in 2019? What would it look like in this government shutdown? What would an act of courage from both sides really look like? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a great start for a conversation. And so maybe that's something you can think about today. But John Hancock, he had courage. And that's what he did when he signed that document. So anyhow, just something to keep in mind today as we continue to watch this play out in government, all right. I'll let you guys hang out with that thought. Let me know what you think. Like, if we had to step back, how would we define that? All right, guys, have a great day wherever you are, and continue to send us any story ideas that you'd like us to check out. We'll continue to watch what's happening in Washington, D.C., and hopefully wrap in a little historical perspective now and then because it's important that we know. All right, have a great day. I'm going to go unlock the door and reemerge to the madness. But I appreciate it. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you later.